I want to tap into one more thing before we get out of here. I want to go into Bernie Sanders. I always got to get an opposing view or a difference of perspective. At least I have not seen this video yet, but we know that Bernie Sanders is an extreme liberal and he believes in overtaxing the rich and all of this stuff. And so he said that he attended the inauguration and this was his authentic thoughts. And I want to share it with you guys and I want to react to it in real time. Let's get to it, y'all.
I was at the Trump inauguration yesterday, and needless to say, I disagree with much of what he had to say. But what really struck me, however, is not what he said, which was not surprising given his rhetoric, but what he didn't say, The simple truth is that Donald Trump gave a major speech, the first speech of his second presidency, and ignored virtually every important issue facing the working families of this country. How crazy is that? Our healthcare system is broken, is dysfunctional, and it's wildly expensive. Not one word from Trump about how he is going to address the healthcare crisis. We pay by far the highest.
Now, I could be wrong. Y'all educate me. Y'all let me know. I thought that Obama was the one that solved for the healthcare crisis with Obamacare. I thought that Obama had solved the healthcare crisis. He didn't do it. I thought that that was supposed to be his landmark legislation and his stamp on history. I thought Obamacare was supposed to fix all of y'all problems. Y'all not rocking with it? Okay, so it's Trump's responsibility again. All right, let's continue.
Highest prices in the world for prescription drugs, sometimes 10 times more than the people in other countries. And 1 out of 4 Americans are unable to afford the prescriptions that their doctors prescribe. Not one word in his speech on the high cost of prescription drugs.
I thought that that was one of the things that Biden and Kamala Harris was running on, was that they had tackled the price of prescription drugs and medicine and driven down healthcare costs. Okay, I could be wrong.
We have 800,000 Americans who are homeless and millions of people spending 50 or 60% of their limited income on housing. We have a major housing crisis in America. Everybody.
No, we don't. We don't have a housing crisis. We have an affordability crisis. We don't have a housing crisis. We have an affordability crisis. Let's make sure that we keep it in context. I shouldn't be telling the senator this, but let's continue.
He knows it. And Trump, in his inaugural address, did not devote one word to it. Today in America, we have more income and wealth inequality than we have ever had.
Not to tax the rich.
The wealthiest 3 people in America now own more wealth than the bottom half of our society. But Trump had nothing to say, not one word, about the growing gap between the very rich and everybody else. And maybe, just maybe, that's because he had those 3 people, the 3 wealthiest people in our country, sitting right behind them at his inauguration.
Let me give y'all a little bit of insight. Did you guys know that every single day, there are 1,700 new millionaires minted every single day? Every single day in the United States, roughly 1,700 people become millionaires. There are 24.5 million millionaires in the United States, and that number is increasing every single day. Ain't that crazy? That's why when I see people that then say stuff to me like, man, I wonder if you even a millionaire. Like, is it really that difficult for you to get there if you do things the right way and you discipline and you stay down long enough? Is it really that difficult? Bernie Sanders is a millionaire. Bernie Sanders is a lifetime politician and he's a millionaire. He's a millionaire. a millionaire. Every single day. In the United States, roughly 1,700 people become millionaires. According to a recent study, and this was back in 2022, it's actually increasing now. Approximately 24.5 million millionaires in the United States of America, and that number is increasing. I'm going to leave that there, but we'll come back to it.
And I should add that those three people, if you can believe it, and this really is unbelievable, saw their wealth increase by more than $233 billion since the November elections. How's that? $233 billion increase.
That's not how that works. All right, so I'm going to let him play out the rest of his speech, but I just want to make sure that I add context to this. That's not how that works. All of their wealth is tied to the success of their companies. It's called equity. Their net worth goes up based off of the value that they add into society. So, you can also invest in the same companies that they're invested in. When they get their compensation, they get it in the form of stock options and equity into their companies that they created, they started, that they risked, they put all of their money up for. And so now that they're reaping the benefits, we now have villainized them and say, no, 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 their net worth increased by $200 billion. That's because of the value of the companies have went up by $800 billion. And their compensation is directly tied to the success of it. See, nobody tripped, nobody cared back in 2008 through 2010 when Tesla was on the verge of bankruptcy and they were 6 days away from actually filing from bankruptcy and being insolvent. Nobody cared. When Elon Musk was historic, like if you go back and look at if you go back and you look at the story of even when they were launching the Model 3 and the Model Y, when he was sleeping every single day on the floor, he was sleeping inside of the plant on a daily basis because they were hemorrhaging money, they were having problems, they couldn't get it launched, and so he was sleeping on the floor with the engineers trying to get that thing off the ground, and they were 6 days away, six days away from losing everything. Nobody cared. He bet everything on himself and he won. And now we want to villainize it and say that it's a bad thing for you to create wealth. Well, you basically decentivize the ability for people to continue to run up a bag. Underground, uncut underground. What's going on, my friend? Welcome to the show. Say no way to sugarcoat it. Wealth is wealth. Somebody told me, and I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I'm just sharing with you what somebody told me. That's why I never say this is a fact. Uh, I heard somebody in the chat say that you got a bag off of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin, and that you sitting pretty out here in these streets. Is that true? Because if it is, that means that at a time when it was maybe unpopular to do so and that you would have to risk money that you traded in your time for, basically you went to work and you grinded and you got your bag, and then you had to trade in your time for money. And instead of you going and investing in or putting your money into a car or a Hellcat or something like that, that you decided to make an investment into the possibility of getting rich or at least getting a bag, and you decided to invest in Bitcoin or cryptocurrency. Is that true? I don't know. I'm asking the question because how is that any different than anybody else betting on themselves and winning? Or it's a lot of other people that lose. They start businesses every day or they invest in something and they lose every day. No, dog. No, dog. See, you're complaining about the same thing that you then became successful off of, if that be true. It's called capitalism. And there should not be a limit to the amount of wealth that somebody can generate based off of the value that they add into society. They solve for a problem, or they invested in themselves, and or both, and then they benefited off of that success. That is literally the American dream. Some of the very people that benefit off of the system and this capitalistic system that we exist off of, which isn't perfect, It's not perfect, but it's better than anything else in the world. I'd rather be here than in China. I'd rather be here than in Japan. I'd rather be here than in Russia. I'd rather be here than in the UK. I'd rather be here than in Canada, where they got the most egregious taxes. And if you're saying that it's not, then tell me where else it is that you can go. That's all I'm saying. Let's let Bernie finish his statement, and we're gonna assess what he has to say. We're not gonna stop him. We're gonna let him get his stuff off.
Increase in wealth for the three wealthiest people. No wonder they were sitting right behind Donald Trump at his inauguration. They couldn't be happier. During his inaugural speech, Trump did not have one word to say about how we're going to address the planetary crisis of climate change. The last 10 years have been the warmest years ever recorded, and extreme weather disturbances and natural disasters are taking place all over the world, from Los Angeles to India, across Europe to North Carolina. Not one word from Trump about climate change, except, of course, to make it clear that he intends to make this horrific situation even worse with drill, baby, drill. Just brilliant. In the coming months and years, our job is not just to respond to every absurd statement that Donald Trump makes. Our job is to stay focused on the issues that are of importance to the working families of our country, and in fact are widely supported by the American people. Let me just mention a few of them. Yes, healthcare is a human right, and we must join every other major country in guaranteeing healthcare to all people through our Medicare for All single-payer program. Healthcare.
Get that piece of crap up out of here. Canada's system is in shambles right now. We trying to mimic that crap?
Is a human right. Yes, we must take on the greed of Big Pharma and substantially lower the cost of prescription drugs in this country. Yes, we must build millions of units of affordable housing and low-income housing.
No, absolutely not. This guy is a kook. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stop him. I said I was going to let him rock. You're right.
Yes, we must make sure that all of our young people have the ability to get a higher education by making public colleges and universities tuition-free. Yes, we must work with the global community to combat climate change by cutting carbon emissions and transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel and into sustainable energy. Yes, we must pass legislation to raise the absurdly low federal minimum wage of $7.25 an hour to a living wage of $17 an hour. Anybody who works 40 hours a week in this country should not be living in poverty. Yes, we must pass
It doesn't solve the problem. They so stupid. Because the price of having this, and it's all individual based off of the state. Every state has its own minimum wage in the first place. And then secondly, I'm going to let Bernie rock. But secondly, it doesn't solve for the cost of living adjustment. So you can increase wages, but all they're going to do is increase prices, which they then pass on to the consumers. And that's how you get inflation individually or within your own sector, in addition to the value that money, in addition to the fact that money, the value of money goes down as they continue to print it. You can raise it as high as you want. When a burger costs $40, it's not going to matter. When you got to trade in 3 hours of your time to buy a burger, that's going to be a problem for you.
PRO Act and make it easier for workers to join trade unions and grow the trade union movement in America. Yes, in order to help fund the needs of working families in this country, we must demand that the wealthiest people in this country, including those individuals sitting right beside Donald Trump at his inaugural,
pay their fair
start paying their fair share of taxes.
How do you suggest that we do that? Do we start taxing unrealized gains? Elon Musk paid the most in taxes of anybody in history a couple years ago. He paid more. He paid billions in taxes in one single year, more than anybody in history, and propped up the IRS. How would he suggest that these people then pay even more in taxes? Should we tax unrealized gains? Should we tax unrealized gains in your houses, in your portfolio, and your equity that you have and that you was paid in your company? How would he suggest this? California has the highest taxes in the nation and they in shambles. New York has the highest taxes in the nation and they in shambles. You can't tax your way to wealth. You cannot tax your way to wealth. Maryland is raising taxes and they're running out all of the tax base. You cannot tax your way to wealth. It does not work. They trying to do it over in Chicago and they got downgraded on their credit. You cannot tax your way to wealth. That's not what happens. It's crazy.
Yes.
And the government don't need no more of our money to manage our money. They need to get their hands off of our money. They already got too much that they mismanaging, and y'all don't even want to do an audit of the federal government.
We must end a corrupt campaign finance system which allows a handful of billionaires to buy elections and move us rapidly into an oligarchic form of society.
This guy just talking.
Bottom line, as we enter the new Trump presidency, we have got to remain focused. We cannot panic. No matter how many executive orders he signs, and no matter how many absurd statements he makes, our goal remains the same. We have got to educate, we have got to organize, we've got to put pressure on Congress to do the right things.
You are
And
Congress.
by the way, with Republicans only holding a 3 or 4 seat advantage in the House, we can stop them time and time again if we are organized. Finally, my friends, we have got to fight to create an America based on economic, social, racial, and environmental justice.
Get the hell out of here, Bernie Sanders. Anyways, I'm done with Bernie. We done with Bernie. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat.